Go to Joe 303.
Tomorrow, superstars. Tuesday.
Is that the stable genius saying that?
30330.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And
This is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
We choose truth over facts.
We'll see who's sleepy.
I'm not going nuts. 30330.
we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the you know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
I got started out with HBCU. No mistake.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
30330.
Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. Yes, I am reporting here from Joe Biden's office. He was kind enough to let me use it. And of course, that gets me to a very, very important announcement. I've decided after consultation with Joe Biden that I will be throwing my full 100% support behind him. In fact, we will be renaming this channel Biden Nation in honor of our next president of the United States, Joseph Biden. Give it up, everybody. Give it up. He's our president. Happy April Fools, guys. I know. I thought we canceled April Fools, but I could not help myself. All right. Now that I've freaked everybody out and lost probably 1 million subscribers, if I had that to begin with, let's talk about what we're going to do on today's show. All right. So we have another story. It's basically a continuation of the story of My Pillow, the My Pillow guy. Then we're going to go, of course, guys. I was just kidding. Reading the chat, everybody's having a meltdown. It's awesome. Got you. All right. Anyway, those of you who are listening to the podcast, by the way, I had an image of Joe Biden's office, and so I freaked everybody out. All right, so now we're going to talk about Donald Trump still going against the ACA. Interesting stuff. And then we've got more reporting on the Republican, Kelly Loeffler, who dumped their stock. Fun times. And then we've got Medicare for all. And also we do have a story that was in the New York Times that I want to talk about. Boy, it shows just the type of people who voted for Joe Biden in the primary and the reason why. And it is frustrating. It's infuriating. All right. So, oh boy. All right. So, let's start out here. Let's do the first story. Let's kind of dive right into it. Okay. Pillow guy. All right. My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell is not happy about the response to his appearance at a Trump press briefing on Monday. In fact, I want to show you that press briefing, as insane as it was, and then we'll get to to the response on that. Take a look.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your call to action, which has empowered companies like MyPillow to help our nation win this invisible war. Now I wrote something off the cuff, if I can read this. Okay. God gave us grace on November 8, 2016, to change the course we were on. God had been taken out of our schools and lives. A nation had turned its back on God. And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families. With our great president, vice president, and this administration, and all the great people in this country praying daily, we will get through this and get back to a place that's stronger and safer than ever.
Once again, why? Why is the MyPillow guy there? And why does it sound like I'm in the middle of a sermon? That's the Rose Garden, and they're supposed to be giving updates on what's going on in the country as it pertains to COVID-19. Now, I understand that he's there talking about how, we're going to make some face masks and everything like that. Well, they're not making the right kind of masks that are in demand right now. What we need is the N95 respirator masks. What he's going to be making is, allegedly, is the normal cotton masks, which you use for surgery, which are important, but those aren't the ones that are massively in demand. And so, of course, he got criticism from progressives and also people in the media. For example, you had Jim Acosta, who was watching that press briefing as it was going on, and also Chris Hayes. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what Chris Hayes says, and this is a clip from Lou Dobbs' show.
I personally can't help but feel these daily sessions are bad for the country, even dangerous from a public health perspective. It seems crazy to me that everyone's still taking them when you got the MyPillow guy getting up there talking about reading the Bible.
I mean, look, that's just a small little bit of criticism. He gets into it a little bit further, and he said that this is essentially counterproductive because of the president's falsehoods. Notice how Dobbs, of course, leaves that out. And basically, Chris Hayes is like, this guy has not been honest. And he's basically been using these briefings, these press briefings, as campaign rallies, since he can't actually go out and campaign anymore. And so Hayes also suggested that Trump, by calling on people like Lindell, was basically detracting from credibility, right? And, when you're the president of the United States in the middle of a crisis, you want to maintain that credibility. But Donald Trump has not been doing so. He's been spreading fake news, talking about cures that aren't actually cures, or at least not that we know yet, because you need investigation into that and to make sure that it actually works and doesn't have side effects and that it's all that stuff, right? Now, Acosta basically said the same thing. He suggested that presidential briefings about a global pandemic should feature more medical experts, people like Dr. Fauci, and fewer business representatives that basically went in there and touted their companies and then kissed Trump's ass. And he's not wrong. I mean, they're both not wrong. What are we getting from these briefings? We're getting nothing. I mean, essentially it's thoughts and prayers. Literally, go home, read your Bible, and pray. Well, I guess we have to because the government's not going to do anything under Donald Trump. But look, really, this is a great avenue for people who are grifters to go and ply their grift, ply their trade, all while, again, stroking Donald Trump's ego. So now Lindell, obviously he was not thrilled about this criticism about him, and he goes on this long diatribe on Dobbs' show.
Wow.
The pillow guy reading the Bible.
I'll tell you what, I heard Jim Acosta attack me too, and he was 10 feet from me in the Rose Garden. This is just evil, Lou. This is evil. I was talking to the president. I said, Mr. President, you doing these press conferences. I said, I've had friends of mine that are on the left And here I showed him one of my texts. It says, Mike, you know I'm not a big fan of President Trump, but God bless him. He is doing an amazing job. I think he's turning me. These are the real people that are seeing now that this president has done the best man in charge for such a time as this. It's just those newscasters, those journalists and we know who they are. And I'm going to say it, CNN, what they did to me, I'm sorry. I put out a message of hope to the country that God had given us grace on November 8, 2016, for such a time where a nation had turned his back on God. And right now, we're part of this big revival. We can sit at home, we can go there, get back in the Word with our Bible, spend time with our families, and everybody pray that we have this great administration that can make some decisions to get us through this. And, you know, I can't, I'm appalled by the journalists that I see there. I used to think, you know, are they really that evil? Well, yes, they are.
Evil. They're evil, I tell you. Those journalists, how dare they? Now, I love how the anecdote in the middle is like, well, I got friends on the left. First of all, bullcrap. Especially the part about, well, I mean, I tell them how great of a job Donald Trump is doing all the time. And they say, oh man, he's starting to turn me. Really? Look, to be fair, because we like to point out facts in the show, Donald Trump's approval rating has gone up during this crisis. That's because he's constantly on TV. But what he's doing, and he's showing far more leadership than somebody like Joe Biden, who's showing absolutely, let's be honest, very, very little leadership. And that should worry a lot of people. It certainly worries me. But like, Trump's been out there, and yes, he's been putting out a lot of falsehoods. He's been lying a lot, and he's been spreading dangerous conspiracies as normal, right? But at least being out there gives people the appearance that he is doing at least something. That something, of course, look, what little he's done now, right? And he has started to do things. He has started to take this a little bit more seriously. But that doesn't excuse the months of which the administration has known about this crisis and has done absolutely nothing. Nothing. But back to Lindell. The thing about Lindell is, like Donald Trump, he's a grifter. And when what he's claiming is that he would have his company dedicate 75% of its manufacturing to produce cotton face masks, right? So now, on the face of it, you're like, oh, great. He's helping out with the PPE shortage. The thing is, as I mentioned before, those are not the masks that they need. They need the N95 respirators, not the surgical masks. They're not short on those as far as I know. But hey, look, if they are, and if he actually holds up his end of the bargain and actually does what he's supposed to do, or what he says he's going to do, produce a ton of masks and not gouge people when it comes to prices, actually sells them at a fair price, well, then that's fine. No criticism there. In fact, great, wonderful, awesome. But maybe he will, maybe he won't. We don't necessarily know. I mean, allies of this guy describe him as someone who, talks big, right? But generally forgets, just doesn't follow through. That sounds familiar. Well, Donald Trump also talks big and then either forgets or doesn't follow through. So I'm just saying they're a lot alike, apparently. And now the other thing about Lindell is that, look, he's a big Trump supporter. We know that. And so he gave a lot of money to Trump, and he goes out and constantly praises Trump. And so that's why Donald Trump had him at this briefing. It's not because he's going to do all this wonderful philanthropic stuff. Okay, I cannot say that word apparently, but he's going to do all this wonderful stuff, right? And really help out the medical professionals that are in need of PPE, right? Again, we don't know if that's going to happen, but he goes up there under that excuse to basically hawk his company and bask in the great PR. Whereas Donald Trump has him up there because he gave him a lot of money, Lindell did, and kisses his ass. And so that's how you do it. And another thing, though, is since Donald Trump likes Lindell so much, he keeps pushing him to run for governor of Minnesota. And so a lot of this is political. A lot of this is ridiculous. And all this time spent fluffing Donald Trump's pillows could have instead been used to give people actual information about COVID-19. And so I think that's a lot more evil than criticizing a known grifter, which is what Chris Hayes and Jim Acosta were doing. And I say grifter because Lindell has lied about the benefits of his pillow. In fact, prosecutors from 9 California counties sued MyPillow for running deceptive ads about the health and healing properties of his products. And in 2016, the company actually had to settle the claim for about $1 million in civil penalties. So, grifter, trash. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. All right. Actually, you know what? Let's save that story for the next one. Actually, we'll keep it consistent, keep the theme going, right? Now, President Trump is now refusing to reopen the Affordable Care Act enrollment period for the uninsured people. Now, this is happening under a current health crisis where millions of people are uninsured. They just lost their jobs. And so, and their employer-sponsored insurance. And so maybe opening that up would be a way for some of these people to be able to get insurance. An anonymous White House official told Politico on Tuesday night that the Trump administration is not reopening healthcare.gov for an enrollment period, which disregards the urgent pleas from advocacy groups and more than 100 members of Congress. So that same official says, look, we're going to explore other options, right? But we're not going to do that. We're not going to open up the ACA. Oh, really? Okay. So we're in the middle of experiencing a health and economic crisis, and Trump's saying, nope, not going to do it. Why? Why would he not do that? I mean, look, that would make sense to say, and also would probably help insurance companies. And let's be honest with you. I thought insurance companies were his friends, were his donors. Apparently, not good enough for Donald Trump. So now, the other option, there's no details about what other option is there. And to be honest, if it's not Medicare for all, then I don't really care what your other option is because it's not going to do a goddamn thing. I doubt we're even going to see a plan whatsoever because, look, health insurance companies, look, they want to make a profit, right? And so they're going to continue to charge people for treatment, even though the administration did get them to waive some copays and deductibles for testing. Well, okay, you're going to do that for testing, but you're not going to do that for treatment, even though Donald Trump said otherwise. And don't get confused by the press conferences by Donald Trump, who says, "Oh, don't worry, all this will be taken care of. It'll be free. Don't worry about it. The testing and the treatment is going to be free." No, it's not. Health insurance companies did not agree to that whatsoever. In fact, the treatment can cost, even with insurance, thousands of dollars, right? For someone who's uninsured, expect to pay, if you survive, if you're lucky enough, $20,000 to $70,000. That's money that you owe for getting treated for COVID-19. And so that problem, by the way, is not solved by opening up ACA enrollment. Okay. But still, the Democrats are calling on Donald Trump to open it up because they're saying, well, look, lives are at stake, right? We got to do this. In fact, Representative Bill Pascrell says, quote, "In the middle of a pandemic that could kill hundreds of thousands, Trump and his toadies are deliberately blocking Americans from buying healthcare. There's this fanatical cruelty that will kill people." Huffington Post Jeff Young wrote late on Tuesday, quote, "The people living in the 38 states that use healthcare.gov will likely remain uninsured. leaving them potentially exposed to tens of thousands of dollars in cost if they get sick and need medical treatment. The negative consequences of this active refusal to offer help to vulnerable Americans is obvious. This isn't just an outrageous decision, but it's also a deadly one. And so, look, the reason he's doing this, of course, is because Donald Trump hates the ACA. And the reason that he hates the ACA is because of Obama. And keep it real, Donald Trump is literally that petty. So he's like, we're not going to do the ACA, right? I'm not going to open it up. Well, he's also not going to do Medicare for all either. And so I don't know what his plan is going to be. It's probably, again, not going to be a plan. He's going to do literally nothing. But here's the thing. The Trump administration, because they hate Obamacare so much, because Obama, they've tried to restrict eligibility, right? They tried to kill the law nationally. In fact, the administration is currently backing a lawsuit that, if successful, would completely overturn the ACA. Now, that's why it's ridiculous to even try to defend the ACA at this point and not push for a Medicare for all system. But hey, man, as far as Trump is concerned, if that happens and millions of people lose their insurance, he's going to call that a win because I own the black guy. Our president's a sociopath. But again, here's the real issue, right? From a progressive perspective. Even if you open up the ACA enrollment period, there are millions of people who will not be able to afford insurance. So what's really the point of that? I mean, there are millions of people that lost their jobs, 3.3 million people in a week, and unemployment is expected to go up above 30% by the Federal Reserve. That's, again, according to Federal Reserve projections. So you have all these people that are losing their jobs and losing their health care and their source of income. And right now, yes, there are unemployment benefits, but there are people who also don't qualify for those unemployment benefits and don't qualify for the one-time $1,200 stimulus check. What are they going to do? They're not going to have insurance. Of course, a lot of those people likely didn't have insurance to begin with. And so they've already been effed, and they're going to continue to be screwed over because we don't have universal health care, since we don't have Medicare for all. And so it even gets worse, right? Because insurance companies plan on having a gigantic rate increase. According to an analysis by Covered California, insurance companies could raise premiums by more than 40% next year. And so you will have employers, ones that are actually left, either dropping coverage or increasing the out-of-pocket costs for employees, passing it down to the employees. And so, look, I know it's next year, but let's be honest. This is not something that we're going to be recovering from, or that we're going to be recovered from by next year. We're going to still be recovering. And there's still going to be millions of people that are out of work. There's still going to be a lot of businesses that have closed because of this. And there's going to be millions without health insurance. And so what is opening up the ACA actually going to do? It's not really going to do anything. Yes, it is a step. But in reality, what we really need to do at the very, very, very least is make sure all CV-19 testing and treatment is free. Trump can do that. He can do that. And then what we need to do is get to working on pushing our politicians to pass Medicare for all. Now is the time to push for Medicare for all. There is no better time. Okay. All right. Recently, Senator Kelly Loeffler was outed as having done some shady trades after she, of course, dumped millions of dollars in stock prior to the financial crash related to COVID-19. So those were her shady trades, right? Now, as part of Congress, she had information on the possible financial impacts of the virus. And while she claims she didn't use that knowledge to enrich herself, more disclosures that have come out show a different story. Now, this is according to a report in Mediaite. Now, new financial disclosures from Kelly Loffler revealed that she had dumped more stocks last month than she had, and then reinvested in a medical company making equipment that is now being used to fight COVID-19. Now, Loffler, who was married to Jeffrey Sprecher, chairman of the New York Stock Exchange and CEO of the business services company Intercontinental Exchange, has been under scrutiny for weeks ever since it is reported that she had made dozens of stock sales after getting briefed on COVID-19 months ago. And so the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published a report on Wednesday on Loeffler's latest financial disclosure forms, and Intercontinental Exchange sold $18.7 million worth of stock in 3 deals from late February to early March. AGC reported that Sprecher also sold off stock he and his wife held with multiple retail stores, then invested in a company that produces personal protective gear, which remains in high demand because of the current health crisis. Sprecher bought $206,774 worth in chemical giant DuPont in 4 transactions in late February and early March. DuPont has performed poorly on Wall Street, but the company is a major supplier of desperately needed personal protective gear as the global pandemic strains hospitals and first responders. And so let me stop there for a second, right? So just the fact that DuPont is not doing great shouldn't be an indication that, oh no, she's innocent, right? No, you can do insider trading with knowledge and still not come out ahead. But you can also do insider trading and basically save money. And that's what this is, right? So anytime that there's a huge dip in the market, what you want to do, what would be great is if you would get out of those, you would save money by getting your money out, by selling your shares, right? When it's high and then buying low, right? That's generally how you do well in the stock market. You sell high, buy low. And so that's what they're doing. If you have insider information as a member of Congress, you are more able to do that than the regular investor. And so there's that, right? So now let me give you more details. Now, the couple also dumped $70,958 in stock from retail clothier Ross Stores. This is one of the retailers, right? And a similar sale of $27,580 in stock from TJX COS, the parent corporation of TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Sprecher also unloaded stock worth $56,693 in the upscale yoga clothier Lululemon in early March, just after the stock dipped from its all-time high. So I tell you all that information just to show you exactly what trades were made and in what companies. So right now, we're in the midst of a global, what looks to be a global recession could even be worse than a depression, right? So high-end clothes, people are not going to be buying those, right? Nobody cares about Lululemon right now, right? And so, yes, you dump that stock, you save money. You dump stock in all these high-end clothing lines, you save money. So it makes a lot of sense, right? So now she sits in Congress, gets briefed on this, right, on COVID-19. And then, by the way, her husband, while, he's running the stock exchange, they both, with that insider information, allegedly, dump stocks in retail, which are facing huge hardships, and invest in medical supply companies who are in high demand right now. That's really strange. Now, are we supposed to believe that her advanced knowledge of the crisis had nothing to do with any of her stock sales? Nothing. I mean, that's what she claims, right? Are you kidding me? No, she was trying to save money. The stocks that were sold had lost an average of value of approximately 32%. They lost over 30% of their value. That's a lot of money down the drain, especially if you've invested in the millions, and you may have lost millions of dollars. Both her and her husband avoided losing a lot of money. And yet she says, no, I had nothing to do with this, right? I had nothing to do with the decisions to sell the stock. I didn't use my advanced knowledge. No. All of our trades are totally above board. Oh, what a lucky break then for you. I don't believe it though. Trash. She's trash. She's trash and she belongs in prison. Period. I mean, we did not have access to that information. She did. It's not a fair playing field. That's why we have things like the Stock Act, right? If you're a sitting politician, I'm going to go further, right? Because I think the Stock Act is too weak. I think that if you're a politician, you shouldn't be able to have stock at all. You shouldn't be able to own stock, period. And you should immediately be forced to divest from your businesses under criminal penalty. That's it. Give up your investments. Now, some of you might be saying, well, wow, too harsh. What are you doing? Just because they're a politician doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to own stock. No, because it's corruption. You should not be able to own stock, right? Because here, the whole reason that you're in office is you're supposed to be a public servant, right? You're supposed to serve the public, not yourself. When you own stock in companies, when you have investments, it doesn't matter if it's a blind trust, right? The decisions that you make will ultimately help one company or another. That's the undeniable reality of being a lawmaker. So you should be forced to divest completely because you should not make any money from being in office. You shouldn't make lobbying money, right? You should only make your congressional salary. Because look, it wasn't designed to be this way. It was designed that, hey, you come and you serve in office for a couple of weeks, pass some laws, and you go back to the farm, right? Obviously, it doesn't work that way anymore. Now it's like a year-long job in which they take tons and tons of vacations and breaks and go back to their, their districts and go and campaign and beg for money. Look, the thing is that we should rethink how much they can actually profit from office. I think they should profit not at all. I think they should just get the congressional salary, and that's it, $140,000 a year. Some of you may disagree with me, but I think that is the best way to clamp down in this corruption, right? I mean, because think about it, right? Are we really going to trust politicians to not put their own financial well-being above ours, above the country, above their duty in office? I mean, if you do, you're 100% naive. You don't really understand human nature. That's why we need laws, we need rules, and we need a body to enforce those rules. Loffler, I think, did insider trading. I think it's fairly obvious, right? And if we're going to have laws, they need to apply to everyone, even incredibly wealthy as she is, congresspeople. Okay. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We've got the most infuriating story that we have in the rundown today. And then we're going to follow it up with something a little bit better. So stay right here. We'll come back. We're going to thank some patrons. And we're going to thank some channel members as well and some super chats. And so we'll do all that right after this quick break. Stay right here. Run the Nation.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here at GOP Nation. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, right? So I want to thank some channel members first. I want to thank RDG and the Jinxana. So thank you for being members. Patrons, I want to thank Andrew Irwin and Stefan Pereira. So thank you. Patreon.com/TYTNation to support the show. And of course, there's many other different ways to do so as well. All right. So super chats here. It's another way. Let's read some of those if they decide they want to pop up, which they apparently do not. Hold on here. So I will find a different way. Here we go. Let's see. The Siroth said, none of that malarkey, Joe or bust. Well, they call it no malarkey. You know what I mean? Platypi says soft landing. It's the My Pillow guy. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do okay with those sidebars. Gokugini says, you're running out of friends when you need the... I don't see the rest of that message. That sucks because I want to see the rest of that message. So I can... Here we go. You're running out of friends when you need the My Pillow CEO to kiss your butt and talk about GOP Jesus. Also, how's this guy not been smothered by a My Pillow? Just saying. I don't know, man. I do not know. And then finally, David Richardson says, I feel like the U.S. is going through a third Escape From movie. I'm looking for Snake Plissken right now. Although it's hard to spot him from here. Snake, where are you? All right. Thank you for those super chats, by the way. You guys are awesome. So let's get to the most frustrating story of the day. Never Bernie people describe how why they wanted to stop Bernie Sanders. Again, super frustrating. A lot of people have been wondering why Joe Biden, a 3-time failed primary candidate with numerous problems, baggage, suddenly found himself as the Democratic frontrunner, despite, of course, Bernie Sanders, prior to Super Tuesday, looking like he could run away with the entire contest. Well, the answer from the establishment is that, well, obviously, black voters, they rejected Bernie Sanders because of numerous reasons. I mean, take your pick. He's not a party player. He's not a team player. He doesn't do well against Trump. Whatever reasons, right, that they come up with. And they've came up with quite a lot. Now, I think they're all preposterous. Bernie Sanders has always had a significant lead over Donald Trump, for example, when it comes to polling. And his policies are actually really popular with the American people. Even some of these people who are never Bernie claim to love his policies. Well, then what's the problem? Well, I'm going to get into that. So now, this is an article in the New York Times, right? And these self-described never Bernie Democrats really expose the reason why they could never vote for Bernie Sanders. Now, spoiler alert, it had nothing to do with actually beating Donald Trump. It had everything to do with Bernie just, being unpalatable to them. One voter that was profiled, Jane King. Now, Jane King is a very old person. She's 70 years old, and she's a financial investor from Boston. Now, she says, well, I'm progressive, right? I'm progressive, so that's why I supported Elizabeth Warren, right? Now, Warren eventually faded. And so she thought about going to Bloomberg, which to me makes absolutely no sense because if you actually listen to the substance of their debate, Elizabeth Warren did not agree at all with Bloomberg. At all. Nonetheless, she thought, well, maybe I'll go to Bloomberg. Maybe I'll go to Biden. Well, why not Bernie Sanders? I mean, if your first choice was Elizabeth Warren, who had progressive policies as close to Bernie Sanders as you could get, right? Well, then why not go for Bernie Sanders. Well, she told the Times that instead of going for Bernie Sanders, she was, quote, willing to do whatever was necessary just to stop Senator Bernie Sanders from becoming the Democratic nominee. Quote, I didn't want Bernie to beat Elizabeth in her own backyard, but then it became much more complicated. Well, how much more complicated? She said, quote, are we going to have a nominee who could take on the Republican Party? We have to stop Bernie. Well, but that doesn't make sense. Bernie Sanders is more than able to take on Donald Trump and the Republican Party and win. And the reason I say that, and I know it blows establishment minds, right? But when you have a fake populist versus a real populist, generally the real populist tends to win, right? Especially now when the game has changed, when the entire playing field is different because we're facing a global pandemic and we're the only country in the world that doesn't have universal health care. So that's the problem, right? So now, here's the thing. Everybody says, oh, only an establishment moderate can take on Donald Trump. That's why we chose Joe Biden. Because he was the strongest, right? But that's actually wrong. In reality, and it's spelled out in the piece, right? It says, beyond ideology, race, and turnout, a chief reason for Mr. Biden's success has little to do with his candidacy. He became a vehicle for Democrats like Ms. King, who were supporting other candidates, but found the prospect of Mr. Sanders and his calls for political revolution so distasteful that they put aside misgivings about Mr. Biden and backed him instead. So understand, right? It's not about his policies, right? It's not about him being too far left, right? And that's the constant he's too far left. He's too far of a leftist. No, these people like his policies, but they're like, I just don't like him. He's just not a good, he's so uncivil, right? So, instead of voting for policies that I like, well, I'm just going to vote for no change Biden because Bernie Sanders offends my sensibilities. He once wagged his finger in a woman's face. Oh, that's it. Done. Can't vote for him. Totally. In phone interviews, dozens of Democrats, mostly 50 and older, who live in key March primary states like Massachusetts, Virginia, Michigan, and Florida, said Mr. Biden's appeal went beyond his case for beating President Trump. It was his chances of overtaking Mr. Sanders, the only candidate in the vast Democratic field they found objectionable for reasons personal and political. Some of those reasons involve 2016, right? Where they blame, of course, Bernie Sanders for having the temerity, the audacity to get in the middle of the anointment of Hillary Clinton. And that's it. That's the narrative coming out of the establishment media and has been coming out of it for years. Oh, it's Bernie Sanders' fault. He shouldn't have run against Hillary Clinton. And, even though he ran against Hillary Clinton, but he didn't work hard enough for Hillary Clinton. And then the Bernie bros, they voted for the Trump. It's all their fault. It's always someone else's fault, right? Not true. Not true at all. Bernie Sanders did 40 rallies for Hillary Clinton. And the reason that he took so long is not because he expected to win. It's because so he could get some concessions on the progressive platform, right? And so that's why we had the Unity Reform Commission to try to make some more fair changes to the DNC. Now, it largely didn't work. They didn't adopt a lot of the progressive platform that voters called for and that Bernie Sanders supporters called for. And so, that's kind of a wash, but at least it was something that he had tried to do, right? And so that has nothing to do with why Hillary Clinton lost the election. But here's the thing. A lot of these voters, what they have in common is they watch a lot of mainstream news, a lot of MSNBC and CNN, where constantly you hear those same arguments being regurgitated. And so, of course, they repeat those arguments without actually knowing the reality on the ground. Nobody tells them. They're not aware of these things. And so they're just hearing Bernie bad. He can't beat Trump, Bernie bad. But there's more. So let me give you more information on this. Beatrice Abetty of Bonita Springs, Florida, had switched to Biden after Ms. Warren suspended her campaign. Viewing Mr. Sanders as a general election risk, Miss Abetty, 69, An author and former professor said centrist Republicans she thought were critical to an electoral college victory saw Mr. Sanders as a fringe leftist, even if she supported his policy. So she said, quote, I can wait 4 more years for Medicare for all and the Green New Deal and go with Biden. Just get Trump out of office, because that's my number one thing. So that frustrates me, right? I got news for you. You're not going to get Medicare for all and the Green New Deal under Joe Biden. We're never going to get it. Do you understand? Joe Biden ran on no change. He said, I'm not going to change anything. I promise my donors nothing will fundamentally change. He is still saying, no, I won't even consider Medicare for all. So understand, Medicare for all and Green New Deal, they're dead. For the next 4 years at least, they are dead. We are not going to have it. With Donald Trump, we're not going to have it. With Joe Biden, we're not going to have it. Absolutely not. But here's the thing, too, right? The establishment will use this Biden victory, right? Biden becomes a nominee and even becomes president to claim that we were right to oppose it, that it was Medicare for all. It's the fault of Medicare for all and people pushing it. And so that's why, that's why Bernie Sanders lost, right? It's because his policies are super unpopular. We can never do that, right? Even though more Democrats than ever are aligning with that policy. You have 30% of Republicans that support that policy, but they'll never do it. Biden says if it gets through Congress, which is a Herculean task, by the way, he would still reject it. That's Joe Biden. And yet these Democratic voters, they said, well, we can wait for that. You're going to be waiting for a very, very long time. Their primary focus was, we need to stop Bernie. All right. Ms. Borner, by the way, who's 57 years old, you can guess where that trends, right? Generally, older Americans are the most anti-Bernie. She said, I guess after New Hampshire, it became clear Bernie's going to win. So are we going to stop him or are we not? And then South Carolina came that Saturday and provided an answer and a way out. A way out of what? A way out of winning? A way out of getting a step closer to the policies that you claim to profess? Ridiculous, right? Now, one more paragraph in this article. Actually more, but the most stark example of Mr. Sanders' problems with self-identified Democrats may be the war into Biden voters. People like Barbara Becker and Lisa Stone. These voters, many of whom are older Democrats and college-educated women, chose to support a candidate whose platform was a far cry from Ms. Warren's promises of big structural change, rather than a fellow progressive, Mr. Sanders, whom they admit they agree with on policy matters. The voters said while they share Mr. Sanders' beliefs, they reject his style. Quote, Biden is and always has been a collaborative worker. One who knows how to gather and draw on colleagues' expertise, said Ms. Becker, 73, a college professor in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Sanders is a do-it-yourselfer. Ms. Stone, 63, an educator in Houston, said she supported Warren because she was progressive but practical, and that's not what Sanders is. So again, this is what we have, right? I don't like his style. He can't work with other people. He worked with Matt Gaetz to stop us from, trying to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. I mean, he's worked with John McCain in order to get veterans benefits and increase in that. He's been able to reach across the aisle plenty of times. Yes, his rhetoric is a little bit abrasive and can be a little coarse, but he's actually incredibly good at working with people. In fact, Robert Reich, Clinton's former labor secretary, says that Bernie Sanders is one of the most effective legislators. Why? It's because it's not about his ego. It's about not about putting his name on the bill. In fact, a lot of times he'll keep his name off of it in order to not try to upset the balance, to try to get these things passed. He's also known as the Amendment King. And so it's one of those things where they're just not seeing the reality. Either that or they don't care about the reality. And I think it's a lot about the media not informing people. So now, more quotes here. Ms. Stone says, Mr. Biden is like her, a Democrat through and through. I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean? And that while she remained disappointed, Ms. Warren did not perform better in Texas. The fact that the state went to Biden was some consolation. Quote, I wasn't terribly upset. It's better than Sanders winning. I know, because why? I don't understand it. Look, so you agree with the guy on policy, right? And you like the stuff that he stands for, but you don't like him because he can be a little terse and seem a little grumpy. That's it. That's it, right? There's no logic in this. This is all about feelings. And so I love it how, a lot of Democrats are like, oh no, we care about facts, right? We care about facts. We care about policy, right? When in reality, no, they're a lot like the Republicans, these people, where they don't care about facts. They care about feelings. God, maybe Ben Shapiro was somewhat right, where no, Democrats care about feelings over facts, even though Republicans do exactly the same thing, because I think it's more of a human thing than it is a partisan thing. And so, unfortunately, what we have to do is we have to deal with this. We have to deal with blue MAGA, feelings over facts. I mean, these people have outed themselves before. You guys remember Mimi Rocha on MSNBC saying, not doing a public or any sort of policy, like disagreement. No, her disagreement with Bernie Sanders is, I don't know what it is, but he makes my skin crawl. That's it. I mean, the tweets about Sanders where they have no argument except for, I don't know, I don't like how he yells. I don't like his voice. These are blue MAGA. And that's it. I mean, they're only concerned about feelings. I don't care that 68,000 people have died from lack of health insurance. No, you were too loud. No, you wagged your finger at a woman, and now I will vote for someone who is against that, who is against solving that problem. I'm going to let the environment burn without a Green New Deal because I didn't like this voice. It's stupid. It's frustrating. It's harmful. It's annoying. Super annoying. Look, I have to admit that I was a bit naive and optimistic, right? So I thought people, hey man, look, if you just explain the policies that he's in favor of, then you would get people to vote for him. And they would vote for people with the best policy. I was wrong. Oh, 100%. Way too naive and optimistic. I know that now. People don't work that way. Turns out they can see somebody with the best policies that will help them and go, yeah, no, his hair is a little too rumpled. I'm going to go with a guy that isn't going to help me. I'm going to go to the guy that, is part of the people eating or the Tigers Eating People Party because he seems like a charismatic fella. It's like voting for that guy in the Tiger documentary, Tiger King. That's what that is. And this is a problem, right? And look, so many young people, and by the way, a lot of young people don't operate in this way, right? They're out there, working hard because they do believe in these policies. But the amount of young, energetic people that were out there campaigning and knocking on doors and volunteering and all that, so far has not been enough to overcome the voters who vote for stupid reasons. For like no reason at all. Like, I don't know. I liked him because he's not Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders yells too much. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's the feelings over facts voters. Blue MAGA. Blue MAGA. And so I am hoping though that maybe since we have a pandemic, that people have changed. But it still might be too late. We might end up with someone who offers no change as the nominee, or get 4 more years of Donald Trump. And so, look, I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is completely blameless on this one, right? So you can blame Bernie Sanders for not reaching out to these voters, to what I call the blue MAGA or the Fifi's voters, right? They only care about appearance, not substance. But look, you still could reach out to them, I guess. I mean, the article itself said, well, look, Bernie Sanders could have sat down and had lunches with people like James Clyburn, right? And not gotten his endorsement still, right? Because there's no way. But at least he wouldn't have been openly antagonistic. And so you have to go and you have to kiss a bunch of ass for your colleagues if you want them to not come out and say this guy's a horrible person. So that's what this is, right? So this is all about feelings. This has nothing to do with policy. This has nothing to do with actually doing the right thing. No, it's about ego. It's about feelings. And that's really it. Oh, you didn't reach out to me enough, or you didn't try to wine and dine me enough, so you're not going to get my endorsement. That's how this shit works. That's how it works. And it's disgusting. It's frustrating. But that's what it is, unfortunately. And so I guess now we know this. Now we know how disgusting and vain politics really is. So I guess what we do is we play the system to our advantage. All right. You want to be a Fifi's voters. All right. Well, let's figure out how to use that to our advantage so that we can actually help people. And that should be the whole purpose. That should be the whole point, right? Bernie Sanders, he himself was naive because he thought, look, I'm just out there trying to help people by getting good policy. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do that. Well, apparently that is stupid politics today. And so I love Bernie Sanders, and I vote for him in a second. I did here. But he does play stupid politics. It's stupid because it's too honest. He's too honest for our system. He's too good for our system. And so, I don't know. Maybe it's up to us progressives to start playing dirty. In order to do the right thing, we've got to do the wrong thing. I don't know, man. I'm just thinking out loud here, but it's sad. And so this entire primary has been a gigantic eye-opener for me on how things really, really do work. How malicious on purpose the media actually is, because that's one of the big problems, right? And the fact that so many voters don't care about substance at all. And I guess the next question is, how do you reach those people who don't care about substance? Okay. Moving on. One more here. I think that's all right. Now, Bernie Sanders may be losing the Democratic primary, but his ideas continue to be popular, especially as COVID-19 continues to spread. Now, support for Medicare for all among all U.S. voters has reached a new high, according to a Morning Consult political tracking poll. Now, the survey released on Wednesday found that 55% of U.S. voters now support a single-payer healthcare system. That is a 9-point jump since February. While support for Medicare for all is highest among Democratic voters at 75%, a majority of independents, 52%, support the policy, along with 31% of Republicans. Morning Consult's Yusur Murad wrote that the poll conducted between March 27th and 29th suggests progressive lawmakers may have an opportunity to sway key demographics. Support for Medicare for all grew among people in the $50,000 to $100,000 income brackets, and voters between 45 and 54, and Black voters by roughly 10 points each. Now, notice those are the groups that Bernie Sanders generally has had difficulty reaching, right? Older Black voters weren't exactly sold on the policies. Older voters generally, and people who are wealthier, didn't go for that policy. They're like, oh, no, we like our employer-sponsored health insurance. Well, now a lot of people are losing that employer-sponsored health insurance, and now they're going, oh, wait, maybe we should rethink this. Medicare for all, where are you? Now, she also noted that with the discussion of enacting a universal healthcare system in the United States intensifying, 43% of voters say they are more likely to support reforms to grant all Americans health insurance from the government because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Notably, that support does not include the frontrunner in the Democratic primary presidential election, former Vice President Joe Biden. So that is an interesting voice, right? That is missing in this. Joe Biden will never support Medicare for all. He said that he'd veto it if it ever came to his desk, and just recently doubled down on his opposition to it. In fact, I've got that video where he was plainly asked, now that we have a pandemic, will you change your support for Medicare for all?
Wow. The pillow guy reading the
I'll tell you
Bible.
what.
All right, that's the wrong video. Hold on here. I don't know if I put that in. Just give me a second.
I heard Joe.
Because as you've been seeing, our healthcare system seems to be crumbling underneath this crisis. There is not enough. There's not enough support for the healthcare system. There's not enough support for the American people inside of the healthcare system. Are you now reconsidering your position when it comes to single-payer healthcare?
Single payer will not solve that at all. The thing that is needed is, for example, we have a whole number of hospitals that are being so stretched, including rural hospitals, they're going to need more financing. That doesn't come from a single payer system. That comes from the federal government stepping up and dealing with the concerns that they have, the reimbursement that they're going to get, how they're going to be able to move forward, and how they're going to be able to provide all the needed help that are needed in their community.
All right, so look, again, earlier, Joe Biden also said, if it came to my desk, I would veto it. Now, understand, right? You could say that he is too rigid in his position. Why would you refuse a bipartisan effort to get things done, Joe? I mean, what's the issue here? Now, look, the reason I say that, and I present it in that way, is because that's exactly the same framing that they used to go after Bernie Sanders. It's too rigid. He's too rigid. He's terrible working with people, and therefore not qualified to get things done or to lead because he can't get things done. Well, now, wait a minute here. So Joe Biden is saying, look, if I become the nominee, if I become the president of the United States, well, look, normal people would think, okay, who would be leading that effort to get things through Congress, right? To get Medicare for all through Congress. It would be somebody like Bernie Sanders, right? It's his bill in the Senate. Pramila Jayapal's bill in the House, right? She's a progressive. And so they would both be pushing that bill, right? If they somehow got that through Congress, and by the way, you would need moderates and you would need conservatives in order to pass it, right? It would be a monumental undertaking. And if it were to pass in that extremely unlikely and extraordinary scenario, Joe Biden is saying, I still will not sign this bill. Think about that for a moment. Think about that, right? And then think about the current crisis going on. Think about the fact that insurers are planning a 40% rate hike in the next year because of COVID-19. Think about the fact that millions have lost their jobs and their employer-sponsored healthcare. Biden does not give a damn about that. Now switch the position, right? Say if Bernie Sanders somehow became president, and say Congress got together in a bipartisan way and had a public option, and they passed that and they sent his to his desk. Do you think Bernie Sanders would honestly look at that and go, public option, veto, no chance, no health care. We're going to keep it status quo unless we get Medicare for all? No, that's absolutely preposterous. That would never happen. How do I know that? Let's go back to the giant corporate welfare bill, right? That stimulus, right? That went through Congress. Trillions of dollars going to corporations and the rich, and a little bit of help for regular people in the form of expanded unemployment benefits. That is something that Bernie Sanders fought for and got put in the bill. And then when Republicans tried to block that piece, Bernie Sanders said, not on my watch, and threatened to hold up the bill and got those 4 congressmen to back off. So if you've got unemployment now, which you wouldn't have before, you can thank Bernie Sanders for that. So now the reason I point to that situation is just the most recent example of where Bernie Sanders will do the right thing, right? Passing that bill, as terrible as it was, and as much as I hated it, and I imagine Bernie Sanders hated it, there was something good in there for regular working people, something that was absolutely 100% necessary. Same situation, right? Public option comes to Bernie Sanders' desks. he's going to be like, well, this is obviously not enough. We need Medicare for all. I'm going to pass it. I'm going to sign it because people need help now. But really, Congress, you should do better. That's the situation, right? That's what's going to happen. And so it's not what he wants, but it's positive change. And someone like Sanders, progressives, look, we will take positive change. We will, but we'll fight for more. And that's kind of the difference between the centrist moderates and progressives. Yeah, we'll take some moderate change. We'll take some small change, but that's not going to shut us up. That's not going to stop us from fighting for more. And so that's the thing. When Obama and Biden, they passed the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. There's a big pat on the back, and they said, well, we're done. Healthcare reform. Nailed it. On to the next thing. When in reality, this is just health insurance reform. There wasn't even a public option in it. In fact, that got dropped because the more conservative Democrats weren't interested in it. See, under a progressive, yes, we would still have those moderate, mild changes, right? But we're not going to stop fighting. Like, yes, you pass something and then you don't go, okay, job's over. We're done, right? But historic reform. No, it's going to be like, yeah, it's a good step. Now, here's what I want you to do. Let's keep fighting. Let's keep doing more and more and more. Let's keep adding on to that. Now, later on, in order to try to get re-election and to beat Donald Trump, that's when the centrist Democrats and the moderates come out and say, oh, no, we're going to tweak Obamacare. We're going to make it better. Okay, we're going to add on to it. Why weren't you doing that from the beginning? You should have. You should have been doing that from the beginning. Because this was only supposed to be a small step towards actually getting universal health care. I remember Obama talking about that, right? Oh, no, Obamacare, the ACA is going to be a small step, and then we're going to eventually get universal health care. But that eventually never happens because once they get that small reform, well, that's it. That's my legacy. I'm good. They never cared about covering every American. They never cared about the people. All they care about is their legacy. And that's unfortunately what we're going to see from someone like Joe Biden. But with Bernie, with Medicare for all, the whole point is to help people, to help as many people as we can. And so I can only hope that, as our healthcare system has fallen apart already, right? And I hate the fact that it was weak enough to begin with to be able to fall apart. I'm hoping that at least one of the good things that comes from this is more support for Medicare for all. And people saying that, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe we should continue to fight for this. Because the effects of what we're going through right now, it's not, when it's over, it's not just going to be over and then everything's hunky-dory back to business. No, it's going to take a very long time for people to recover. It took years and years for people to recover from the Great Recession. And even to this day, there's a lot who didn't recover. But again, we're going to need these policies going forward more than ever because there's going to be so much financial pain in this country. And a lot of it is going to be medical debt. Understand. And we already had this problem before, but now it's going to be on steroids. So the question used to be when we talk about Medicare for all, fine, but how can we afford to do it? Whereas the question now is how can we afford not to do it? All right. That's all I got. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you. Please like and share the stream. Please hit the bell twice if you're subscribed to get access to our clips. Also, you can subscribe. You can support us on patreon.com/DWTNation. You can support us by hitting the join button below to become a channel member, all sorts of different ways. So other than that, thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Mike Pence.
Please clap.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.